Everyone is a winner from Wednesday night's debate. At least that's how the candidates see it. From Carly Fiorina touting her business savvy on the stage, to Donald Trump smacking down competitors left and right, to Marco Rubio putting his foreign policy credentials front and center. Here's a quick mashup of Wednesday night's best moments, and Wednesday's debate is still making waves.
You know, I think Mr. Trump is a wonderful entertainer.
So I only say this. She can't run any of my companies. That I can tell you.
Mr. Trump, we don't need an apprentice in the White House. We don't need an apprentice in the White House. We have one right now.
If I were sitting at home and watching this back and forth, I'd be inclined to turn it off.
While I'm as entertained as anyone by this personal back and forth about the history of Donald and Carly's career, for the 55-year-old construction worker out in that audience tonight who doesn't have a job, who can't fund his child's education, I got to tell you the truth. They could care less about your careers.
I in no way am willing to get into bed with special interest groups or lick the boots of billionaires.
So 40 years ago, I smoked marijuana, and I admit it. I'm sure that other people might have done it and may not want to say it in front of 25 million people. My mom's not happy that I just did.
Joining me now to break it all down, NBC News political editor Carly Dan. And we won't get into your marijuana history, Carly, but
my mom might be watching.
It's good. Much has been made about this debate a few days ago. We have the rise of Carly Fiorina. I thought that Christie also did remarkably well. One person, though, that I really felt solidified himself was Marco Rubio. He took the issues presented in the foreign policy section of the debate, ran with them, owned them, basically said, I've been studying this since 2010 when I came to the Senate. Do we have some sound from that? I'd like to play it.
Look around the world today. There is a lunatic in North Korea with dozens of nuclear weapons and a long-range rocket that can already hit the very place in which we stand tonight. The Chinese are rapidly expanding their military. They hack into our computers. They're building artificial islands in the South China Sea, the most important shipping lane in the world. A gangster in Moscow is not just threatening Europe, he's threatening to destroy and divide NATO. You have radical jihadists in dozens of countries across multiple continents, and they even recruit Americans using social media to try to attack us here at home. And now we've got this horrible deal with Iran where a radical Shia cleric with an apocalyptic vision of the future is also guaranteed to one day possess nuclear weapons. We are eviscerating our military, and we have a president that is more respectful to the Ayatollah in Iran than he is to the Prime Minister of Israel.
So, Carly Dan, you have the youngest guy on the stage, 44 years old, becoming the foreign policy elder, without doubt looking the most well-versed on the issue in front of 25 million people.
Well, and he's hitting the right notes where Republican primary voters, they want to hear strength on national security. They hadn't been punishing Donald Trump and Ben Carson for tripping up on these issues before, and especially with Hugh Hewitt as a moderator of this debate. We knew that there was going to be a foreign policy focus, and Hewitt had tangled with both Trump and Ben Carson, calling them out for not knowing the answers to these questions that Hewitt says this is basic to our survival as a nation.
Right.
And Rubio had this moment where he could say, I am the person on stage who knows the most about this. I've spent my life, you know, I've spent my career devoted to these issues, and age or experience aside, like, I am the person who can really take on something that Republican primary voters really want to hear about. And he struck this very serious tone, saying, I know that this is all entertaining, you know, it's a good carnival to watch, but I'm the grown-up in the room. And I think he had a very strong performance.
It's interesting because if you look at his strategy, it's almost similar to NASCAR. It's this avoiding the big wreck, right? I'm going to hang back. I'm not going to get down into the mud pit with Donald Trump. I'm going to avoid throwing the barbs that Christie is doing. I'm just going to present myself as a very serious candidate who has a real grounding of the important issues. Then he was able to sidestep some other things thrown his way, why he was absent from so many Senate votes, his position on climate change. It seems to me, from where we stand right now, it's very unlikely he's not on the ticket in some capacity, or at least strongly considered, because through at least September, middle of September, he's come through the most unscathed of the high-profile candidates.
But he also hasn't gotten a boost. I mean, it's worth noting after the first debate back in August, when he had a very, very strong debate performance, a lot of pundits, I think First Read included, said, you know, he might see a boost in the polls. That didn't happen. He's sort of been mired at this 5-6%.
Why is that? Is that because Jeb takes all that establishment cred? Is it because they want a governor? What do you think that is?
Well, there was also sort of the rise of Donald Trump and Ben Carson and to a lesser extent Carly Fiorina that took a lot of energy out of everybody pretty much else in the field. Another thing that I really noticed from his debate performance on Wednesday night is he kind of bailed Jeb Bush out when Jeb Bush and Donald Trump were having this interaction about the English language. Speaking English. And Jeb Bush kind of tried to get there talking about immigrants, and Marco Rubio came in and answered the question much better than Jeb Bush did, saying, I want to talk about my grandfather. He came here. He didn't speak English. So he's got that biography going for him, and he presented himself in a way that was sort of a better answer than the person who was taking the question, the establishment frontrunner, Jeb Bush.
Donald Trump obviously gets a ton of media attention, and he obviously gets numbers because there were over 20 million people watching that debate. But I was struck by a moment he had with Jeb Bush, where Jeb Bush tried to get Donald Trump to apologize about making light of his wife's Mexican-American status. Do we have that? I'd like to play that one. Okay. Well, the video is coming. It's being racked up there on our VHS VCR machine. But it was it's one of those things, Carrie Dan, where essentially Jeb didn't flex the muscle a lot of us were expecting, because if there's nothing easier in politics to go after somebody that came after your wife. It's the easiest thing to do in the world. It's been going on for quite some time. From folks I spoke to on the GOP side, that was worrisome to them, that on that question, Jeb was not willing to punch back really aggressively. Right. The interaction was sort of him saying, I think you should apologize to my wife. It would look like a strong moment. Right. Donald Trump essentially said, I don't apologize for anything ever. This is a man who said, I can't remember the last time I apologized for something, and Jeb Bush kind of backed off. We have the sound. I want to play it. We'll get back on it.
Did Mr. Trump go too far in invoking your wife?
He did. He did. You're proud of your family, just as I am. Correct. To subject my wife into the middle of a raucous political conversation was completely inappropriate, and I hope you apologize for that, Donald.
Well, I have to tell you, I hear phenomenal things. I hear your wife is a lovely woman.
She is.
She's fantastic. Know her, and this is a total
absolutely the love of my life, and she's right here. And why don't you apologize for her?
No, I won't do that because I said nothing wrong, but I do hear she's a lovely woman.
It's stiff. You know?
And it was an opportunity for really a strong interaction between them, and Jeb Bush just kind of, and that was shortly before Marco Rubio came in and bailed him out on the language issue as well. Look, another comeback could be, Donald Trump, you're married to an immigrant as well who loves this country. I mean, there's a lot of avenues to go by, and Bush just kind of backed off.
We obviously have not seen any real polls yet. We have those unscientific web polls that gauge debate to performance, but we probably will expect to see a bump for Fiorina after this, right? Because she checks off all the boxes. She's anti-establishment. She has the business acumen. She's a woman. We've seen a certain sense of comfort with the GOP electorate with a woman or an African-American, in the case of Ben Carson, trying to show the party is more than white men. So is it fair to say that Fiorina is the next sort of one to rise up, the next hot air balloon to go up, and we'll see if they come down? Because it's almost like Trump has gone up, then Carson has gone up, and maybe now Fiorina goes up. It strikes me that she probably takes a little bit more from the establishment candidates than a Trump or a Carson would. Well, I certainly think she is the next bump coming. She had a very strong performance. She was very composed. Her comebacks to Donald Trump were the kind of thing that doesn't alienate necessarily Trump viewers who might have thought he went, or fans who might have thought he went a little bit too far with his comments about her physical appearance. But along with that bump, the criticism is going to be coming. Remember, her record at HP, which was discussed a little bit in the debate, is going to be the subject of a lot of scrutiny that she hadn't previously gotten because she hadn't been on that stage along with the front runners. And remember, back when she ran for California Senate, the ad that really took her down and the line of attack that prevented her from rising any higher in the polls was the idea, you cut jobs, people lost their jobs, and you profited. You had $1 million yacht, and that attack is certainly coming soon. The campaign that Barbara Boxer ran against Carly Fiorina was actually the template for the Obama campaign against Mitt Romney. It's the same thing. Right, exactly. And you see how successful it was. What strikes me about her also is that she is the pit bull that the establishment has so desired to go after Donald Trump, but they have not had yet up until this point. And she's taken seriously enough by the GOP electorate because of her anti-establishment status. So here's this great irony, right, is that you have somebody who is a millionaire former CEO who's playing the role of the pit bull for the establishment, who has the credibility because she's never held elective office. That sort of shows you where they are as an electorate right now.
Well, exactly. And she's somebody who presents, I mean, Ben Carson has been filling this spot for a while among people who want an outsider, but something about Donald Trump either turns them off, whether it's that they think that he's not nice enough. There's something that they're looking for an outsider, but Ben Carson really, I think, demonstrated on Wednesday night that his knowledge is just not really there on whether it's economic policy or on foreign policy. And Carly Fiorina could step in and say, I'm also this, somebody who doesn't have D.C. ties, D.C. experience, but I can fill that void and be knowledgeable enough to be president.
She has the knowledge in the sense of referring to knowing Vladimir Putin, crisscrossing the world. She just seemed to get on that stage like she needed to and obviously make a big, big presence. Somebody who we've talked a lot about on the show, Scott Walker, who I will openly say I thought he was just in line to get this nomination. He had a foot in both oceans, the conservative activist ocean, the establishment ocean, tons of money from the Koch brothers, fired up, ready to go. He's been a dud so far. His campaign is now completely reshuffling. They're going to go focus on Iowa because they realize that's the ticket. They have to win Iowa. Walker, as first read said, it's the guy who ran the trick play. He came out very strong with that great line saying we don't need an apprentice in the White House. We need a president because we have an apprentice right now referring to President Obama. Then he sort of disappeared. He actually had the least amount of time from your guys' numbers of anybody up there on the stage. Walker's in some trouble right now. He's taken out a lot of water. The next debate's not till the end of October. What can he do between now and then, you think, to try and change this narrative?
Well, even before the debate, his campaign was trying to double down on the labor fight issue. This is the thing that made him so appealing to conservatives. As Wisconsin governor, I'm willing to stand up to organize labor and fight them. They're trying to take that pitch to the federal government, saying if I'm president, I'm going to reduce the power of federal unions. They've clearly decided this is the thing that gets our potential supporters fired up. They're kind of doubling down on that and obviously shifting. The phrase was our eggs in the basket of Iowa that his campaign is now using. So really trying to concentrate there. And as you said, I mean, we sat at this very desk a couple of months ago and said Walker has exactly the right things on paper to mount a really credible campaign in Iowa. It just hasn't come through, exactly as you said. He came out really strong, and his campaign had said, we're going to interject, we're going to be really aggressive. First 20 minutes, he was totally there. Afterwards, Carly Fiorina instead was the person who was interjecting herself into the debate over and over and was clearly rewarded for it.
It just goes to show you that in the world of punditry, so many things look so good on paper, and then when you actually go into the field, sometimes people are just bad national candidates. And he still has time. If there's anything that is good for him or beneficial for him, is that he still has 4 months. But when he's pulling down around 2%, I mean, there's even a worry he might not even qualify for the big stage debate, and that's it. If he can't qualify for the next debate, I mean, I would say for all intents and purposes it's over. All right, last but not least, Christie. He came rearing to go. It was I thought, a performance similar to 2012 Christie, the original Christie, bombastic, flamethrower, but still a affable, likable guy. Very